Tomorrow is a huge day for Bill Cosby, comedic icon. I mean, just someone who was bigger than life. America's dad was convicted of sexual assault in Pennsylvania, is in prison as we speak, but tomorrow his team will be in front of the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. Julie Grant has more on the background of this story.
The beloved actor and comedian, once known as America's dad, now considered a sexually violent predator, is hoping to have his convictions overturned. The two main issues in Bill Cosby's appeal involve the testimony of other accusers besides victim Andrea Constant and an alleged promise he would not be prosecuted. Cosby's first trial ended with a hung jury, the second with convictions on 3 counts of aggravated indecent assault. In the first trial, the court allowed the state to call 1 prior bad act witness, but in the second trial, the court allowed 5.
There's a disparity there in the numbers. Looking at the math, it makes sense to me that the Supreme Court wants to look at this issue.
Trial expert Barbara Ashcroft once served as a prosecutor in Montgomery County, where Cosby was tried, and now serves as Attorney Advisor General to the U.S. Marine Corps.
When you have 5 witnesses saying that, they were drugged in some way, they were incapacitated, they were sexually assaulted, versus 1, right? The numbers themselves speak volumes about what the members are going to be thinking, what the jury is going to be talking about behind closed doors.
Such witnesses were in addition to victim Andrea Constant, who was the named victim for the crimes charged. The defense argues the trial court erred in allowing other accusers to tell their stories for crimes never charged, specifically arguing it's prohibited propensity evidence. The trial court ruled the jury could hear the other women's stories because 1, they could be considered part of Cosby's common plan, and 2, because they show an absence of mistake.
Big picture here, I think this is going to be monumental decision, and it's going to affect the prior bad acts admissibility with many, many cases to come.
The second issue being raised is with an alleged promise not to prosecute made by former Montgomery County DA Bruce Castor. It was never a formal immunity agreement approved by a court, and it was never put in writing. Castor announced the decision by press release in 2005. Subsequently, Cosby admitted during a deposition for Andrea Constant's civil lawsuit that he would give women quaaludes before having sex with them.
But we all need to remember at this deposition, when he made admissions about quaaludes and having sex with women after giving them quaaludes, he had his team of attorneys at that deposition table. And so if he wasn't, of the mind to say, hey, listen, I'm not going to incriminate myself, he had a team of attorneys there.
The case was settled for close to $3.4 million in 2006. Fast forward to 2015, new DA Kevin Steele is elected and files charges against Cosby just before the statute of limitations is set to expire.
I work with both Bruce Castor and Kevin Steele, and I have a lot of respect for both of them. Kevin Steele was of the mind that Bill Cosby, the evidence was there, that members of the society should hear it, and they should make the decision whether or not he's guilty or not.
The defense argues DA Castor's intent was to remove the threat of prosecution, so Cosby would not assert his Fifth Amendment privilege in any civil proceedings.
I think that Bruce Castor kind of playing king of the castle, that he could give Bill Cosby total immunity. And by the way, secret immunity is a little silly. We don't have that kind of power. I don't think he had that kind of power.
The damaging admissions Cosby made in the civil deposition were introduced as evidence in his criminal case. Cosby's defense argues on appeal those statements should not have been allowed in.
So these team of attorneys also accepted the fact that there was no written documentation about this secret endless immunity that Bill Cosby was supposed to get against criminal liability. So I think that's always an important issue for the general public to understand. He has a team of lawyers that are there to protect him.
Now, another team of lawyers is going before the highest court in Pennsylvania to protect his interests on appeal, asking the court for a new trial.
All right, big day tomorrow. Let's bring in Court TV Live anchor Julie Grant. Julie, new trial, that's what he wants. What does he have to show tomorrow?
So the standard for review, Vinny, with this case is abuse of discretion by the trial judge. So that's a pretty high standard. We're not just talking about an error in judgment by the court. We're talking about something like proof that the law was misapplied or the law was overridden. You know, we're talking about admission of evidence here is really the issue here. And we're talking about these prior bad act witnesses, for instance, and we're talking about decisions that the trial court makes after conducting the balancing test. And the decision really won't be disturbed unless there were things like bias shown, prejudice shown, partiality, ill will, unreasonableness, or just a lack of evidentiary support overall, maybe to show that the decision was just purely erroneous. So this is a very high standard. I spoke with highly qualified trial expert Barbara Ashcroft about this as well. Let's take a listen to some of what she said now.
The standard of review here is abuse of discretion by Judge O'Neill. That is a very high standard of proof. So defense in this case, they're going to do a lot of spinning. Certainly they've got some ground to cover, and they have to do their job and advocate for Mr. Cosby. But at the end of the day, Bill Cosby's not getting out of jail. And I don't see this conviction being overturned. Now, that is a prosecutor talking, but that's what I see.
And with respect to those prior bad act witnesses, of course, you know, the court's engaging in this balancing test, right, in order to admit them in the first place. And there are exceptions to character evidence. It's not just a character assassination. We're talking about conduct that is nearly so identical. It shows a signature move, if you will, of the perpetrator. And in this case, we're talking about, and these are just some of the similarities, we're talking about women being alone with him in a place of his control. They viewed him as a mentor. We're talking about little blue pills or drinks, other intoxicants being administered. These women then being left feeling frozen, unable to fight him off, but being aware that they were being attacked, but just unable to physically fight and move their bodies because of that partial paralysis. And all of these women reporting being sexually assaulted. So this is predatory behavior and a pattern that was shown here. So that's one of the big issues, Vinny. And when I talked to Barbara Ashcroft, as mentioned in the report, she was in that office in Montgomery County as a prosecutor. She mentioned that there was a case she had before Judge Stephen O'Neill, and he didn't allow any prior bad act evidence. There we go. Any of that to be introduced during the guilt phase in one trial she had. So she remembers being in front of him practicing, said he's been always known as a very thoughtful judge, a very fair judge, a very intelligent judge, someone that she highly respects. And I can tell you, in just watching him, I got to watch him quite a bit when I observed the jury selection that was done for Bill Cosby's first trial. He was very meticulous with the jurors, very thoughtful, considerate of both sides. And during the trial, you could see how he was very clear in his rulings. I sat through the first trial and watched him. So it would be very interesting to see if the court finds there was any abuse of discretion in him allowing all of these witnesses to testify. And even if met, Vinny, one point I do want to make for our viewers, I think it's a really important point. Even if they were to find that standard, this isn't an exoneration for Bill Cosby by any means. This isn't a not guilty on the merits. Just like attorney Barbara Ashcroft said, this doesn't seem like he's getting out anytime soon, even if he would prevail on one or both of these issues on appeal.
All right, so what can we expect tomorrow? New set of lawyers, right? A whole different team there. So what are you expecting tomorrow?
Right. So new set of attorneys, and tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. Eastern time, they will all be convening to make oral arguments before the PA Supreme Court. And the court is going to stream those arguments on a YouTube page. So if anyone is interested, you can watch them. They can't be recorded. They can't be rebroadcast. You could face court sanctions if you do any of that, but you are welcome to watch it. And there's no time limit, which is interesting. It'll just be when the 7 justices have exhausted all of their questions for both sides. And then in terms of when an opinion could be issued, the rules say within 90 days, the court shall issue an opinion on a case heard, Vinny. So within the next few months, we should be hearing a decision on this case. And as far as the other issue for Bill that will be taken up in addition to the prior bad acts is, of course, the immunity agreement, that promise that the defense is arguing was put in place, barring the prosecution. So should be very, very interesting arguments, to say the least. And Bill Cosby will not be there. He will be in prison in Montgomery County. There's no need for him to be there because this isn't a situation where testimony is being taken. And of course, he would have the right to be there if he should so choose. But from what we understand, he's opting not to show up. But we'll be watching closely. I can promise you that, Vinny.
All right, we'll be talking about it tomorrow night. Julie Grant, thank you so much.